In this tutorial, we'll talk about scene setup and lighting. To start, I'll drop down an easy import node, and I'll go ahead and I'll select the pig head. I'll call this pig head. And then I'll go ahead and I'll duplicate this, and I'll let's bring in the crag for this one. Call this crag, rubber toy. I'll bring in fur. Now the way we get these all working together, there's a few different ways we could do it. If I just lay these out real quick. You have a merge node. Now this is not the way I would ideally do it. This will work, but typically it's slower than using a sublayer. Combining all of these with a sublayer by plugging these into the multi-input of the sublayer. And by default, it won't work. You need to change the sublayer type to sublayer inputs. Once doing that, though, it should work just fine. However, my preferred method is to actually use the method that's built into these easy import nodes. So if I delete the sublayer and then align these easy imports, the first input of each of these acts as a merge almost. So I can bring all of these in and they'll all just be referencing the above layer. One thing I noticed is that inside of this Craig, all of the geometry is packed. So back at the object level, if I hop into the Craig real quick, you'll see I only have 67.67 primitives, and obviously that's not right. So we need to unpack this, and I'm just going to go ahead and use the unpack prep from geo option in the easy import, and then you'll see that these go from point instances to actual primitives. Okay, great. So for this, I'm actually going to move the fur out for a second, and I'm just going to work with these 3 solid meshes, and we're going to set up some lighting. So now for lighting, all render engines are going to use the same exact light node. And there's no RS light, there's no Arnold light, there's no Karma light or anything like that. It's all just this light node. And you can change the type up here, and then you have your render engine settings on these tabs. So if I had Arnold, there'd be a tab here for Arnold, and so on. And one of the many reasons why I choose to use Solaris over standard Redshift render view and Redshift at the OBJ level is the options you get when you're lighting a scene. And I'll go ahead and I'll change this to rectangle, and you get some amazing viewport options here. So if I use this edit option up here and I turn on the light display, I can just go ahead and just move the light around like you're used to. But these are where Solaris really shines with lighting. So the specular option lets me just select anywhere on a mesh, and then it will give me a sort of rim light of that edge. If it's too dull like it is here, I can actually fix the distance and maybe move the light in closer, and then just kind of keep finagling with that. Or you could push it out. Fixed distance is just gonna make it snap to a distance of 1 or 2 or wherever you want it to go. So diffuse is gonna work kind of in the opposite way, where wherever you select, it's gonna illuminate that area. It doesn't care about rim light or edges or anything like that. It's just gonna illuminate wherever you select. And lastly, shadow is a super cool feature that allows you to project shadows in specific directions. This is a 2-click feature where the first click is a left click on the mouse, and then you hold shift and left click on the mouse to set your destination. So the first click is where it's shining from, and then the second click is going to shine the direction of this. And I'm gonna go ahead, I'll put a grid in here so that we can start to see some of this stuff. Save this, and let's boot up Redshift and just see how this is working. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go to the base options and turn up the intensity, maybe make it a little bit wider and taller, and we can still edit this from here. So like we can just pull this back, and then shadow is super fast, super interactive, and lets you really quickly make some cool scenes. Turn this off. You can also go ahead in the Redshift tab and get all the standard stuff you're used to if you want to make light invisible. You can spread, contribution, shadow, spot. I mean, all your normal settings are in this tab, and then the intensity, exposure, and like all of your multiplication stuff, like in size of the light, are in this tab. There are a few other lights though. Light node is not the only light. There are also dome lights. You can see them all here. There's distant lights, dome lights, and then you have this cool light mixer, which I'll show you in a later tutorial. So I'll go ahead and I'll just add another light. Let's make this one a distant light, make a shadow. Maybe add another light. I'll drag to make that, and then that one out this way. I mean, it's how quick you can make and light scenes like this is incredible, honestly. Now that I have all this, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring in my fur. The nice thing about Solaris and the USD pipeline with Redshift is that typically to render fur inside of Redshift, you need to turn on this strand setting, this render curves as strands. At the USD level, you don't have to do this. It actually just boots in and loads the whole thing right in, and it's super fast, way faster than the render curves as strands, and it's pretty stable. So basically you just pull it in and then you can change this material. I put a little hair shader on it, change some of this stuff. You can see that it loads all this stuff in pretty quick. You can handle quite a bit of density with your fur just straight in. Now let's say you have a camera at the object level. So I'll go back to here real quick and I'll make a camera. I'll go ahead and I'll pilot it real quick. And let's say I want this view. I want this exact view, animation or anything. Hell, I'll animate it right now. All right, awesome. And now at the stage level, all I have to do is I have to bring in a scene import cameras. We can just plug that in here, and then we should have that camera. It might not be the right aspect ratio just yet. Real quick, just make sure it's all set up right, and it looks to be good. Sometimes checking this on and off will fix any weird aspect ratio stuff that's happening with it, and you can see that it is animating with our current setup. Let's go Redshift, and it looks good. So that's how you bring in a scene from the object level to Solaris, light it, and put materials and stuff. Next, I'm going to show how to actually render this.